to Global Partners. I'll be recusing myself.
State that.
Okay, I have a proposed resolution for the board to consider. Whereas Global Partners submitted a site plan special use permit application for a gas station convenience store for the intersection of routes 9, 23, and 82, town of Livingston, on or about December 26, 2018. Additional material was delivered to the Livingston Planning Board, including plans and modifications to plans under cover of correspondence dated January 25, 2019, April 18, 2019, May 30, 2019, July 2, 2019, July 25, 2019, and September 20, 2019. The Livingston Planning Board began the SEQR process on January 9, 2019 by declaring its intent to assume lead agency status and designating the proposal an unlisted action. Notice of intention to declare lead agency were sent to the following agencies: Columbia County Planning Department, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State Department of Transportation, and Columbia County Department of Health. The proposed action does not meet any criteria which would require it to be designated a Type 1 action. In accordance with the designation of the project as an unlisted action by the Planning Board, the applicant submitted a short environmental assessment form, Part 1, dated January 25, 2019. In order to provide additional information over and above the information found in the short form, the applicant submitted a full, long environmental assessment form, Part 1, dated May 21st, 2019. The application was deemed complete and public hearings were held on February 6, 2019, March 6, 2019, April 3rd, 2019, and August 7th, 2019. The Planning Board has considered the application, all supplemental materials from the applicant, all correspondence received on this matter, and all comments made at the various public hearings, including all correspondence from the public, as follows. There's a list of 50 letters or emails, authors of 50 of emails or letters that have been received, and the list is accompanied by the date of the correspondence, which I will read. In addition to those letters and emails, Paul Rubin, geologist, appeared at several public hearings and submitted correspondence dated March 6, 2019 and April 7, 2019. Attorneys Ken Dow and David Gordon appeared at several public hearings and submitted correspondence dated March 6, 2019 and April 7, 2019. Concerns with the proposal were noted by the Planning Board. Many of the concerns expressed involve potential impact to the aquifer beneath the proposed site. The major concerns were as follows. A, surface water runoffs or spills of petroleum products. B, stormwater discharges containing sediment due to ground disturbance. C, groundwater discharge of sanitary sewer. D, leaking of underground fuel tanks. E, impact on wetlands. F, impact on nearby existing wells. G, impact on threatened and endangered species. H, increased traffic and traffic patterns upon entering or exiting public highways. I, community character. J, future status of adjacent gas station. K, failure to meet requirements of Livingston zoning law. Lengthy and detailed review was made by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Review was provided by Columbia County Department of Health dated January 18, 2019. Review by New York State Department of Transportation continues. Upon consideration of all input received and in looking at the proposed action in its environmental setting, the Livingston Planning Board finds as follows. A, with respect to surface water runoff or spills of petroleum products, the proposed use of a vehicle fueling station in bulk petroleum storage areas is considered a hot spot use according to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation stormwater regulations, as DEC outlined in their New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual dated January 2015, defines a hotspot as follows. Quote, a land use or activity generates higher concentrations of hydrocarbons, trace metals, or toxicants than are found in typical stormwater runoff based on monitoring studies. If a site is designated as a hotspot, it has important implications for how stormwater is managed. First and foremost, stormwater runoff from hotspots cannot be allowed to infiltrate untreated into groundwater where it may contaminate water supply. Second, a greater level of stormwater treatment for hydrocarbons, trace metals, or toxicants of concern is needed to prevent pollutant wash-off after construction. This typically involves preparing and implementing a stormwater pollution plan that includes a series of operational practices at the site, and that reduces the generation of pollutants from the site or prevents contact of rainfall with the pollutants, end of quotes. The applicant has prepared a stormwater prevention pollution plan, SWPPP, SWIP, designed in accordance with the criteria outlined in DEC Stormwater Management Design Manual dated January 2015. That includes a series of operation practices for the area designed as a hotspot, vehicle fueling areas, and bulk petroleum storage areas. A stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWIP, is required in order to contain coverage under DEC state pollutant discharge elimination systems, SPEEDs, general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity. The applicant has submitted a SWIP that outlines the proposed treatment train, which includes collecting runoff from the fueling areas and petroleum bulk storage areas. These areas are paved, curbed, and graded to a series of collection catch basins on site that direct the surface runoff from these areas to a settling tank. The settling tank then discharges to an oil water separator with a valve on the effluent prior to discharge to the proposed separator that is sized to treat 100% of the water quality of the contributing drainage area. Discharge from the separator is then sent to standard pre-treatment basin sized for 100% of the water quality volume prior to discharge to an infiltration basin. The SWIP also includes operational practices at the site that will reduce the generation of pollutants from the site or prevent contact of rainfall with the pollutants. These operational practices include biannual inspections and log of results, a DEC operation and maintenance checklist from the DEC Stormwater Management Design Manual dated January 2015, and mitigation measures taken, removal of sediment from practices by a qualified hauler as needed, but at a minimum of twice yearly, and cleaning of structures from sediment and debris. Additional inspection and maintenance guidelines for a hydrodynamic separator are included in the SWIP as well. The applicant has provided correspondence submitted to DEC. The applicant submitted the SWIP and site development plans to DEC Region 3 office staff, James Malcolm, on June 19, 2019. Various discussions and emails between Mr. Malcolm and the staff at Bowler Engineering occurred, which resulted in a final email being sent by James Malcolm on August 26, 2019 to Michelle Mormile at Crawford and Associates Engineering, indicating that DEC requested an oil water separator with a valve on the effluent be added to the stormwater treatment train prior to discharge into the hydrodynamic separator in order to contain a potential spill. Further plans were submitted indicating the inclusion of the oil water separator with a valve. All plans have been reviewed by the town engineer. B, with respect to stormwater discharges containing sediment due to ground disturbance at the site during construction and prior to stabilization, there will be the potential for increased erosion due to reduced vegetation and increased ground disturbance. The proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise result in stormwater discharges that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. Development of the site will result in a disturbed area in excess of 1 acre. Therefore, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWIP, is required in order to contain coverage under DEC pollutant discharge elimination system, SPEEDs, general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity. The applicant has submitted a SWIP that outlines the erosion and sediment controls to be implemented during construction. The SWIP includes an erosion and sediment control plan that are consistent with New York State standards and specifications for erosion and sediment control. It states that quote, silt fence, stabilized construction entrances, sediment basins, inlet protection, and seeding and mulching, as well as other controls will be utilized as temporary surface water management features and establishment of turf grass, landscaping, or any other stabilization measure that will significantly reduce the risk of erosion, end of quotes. All plans have been reviewed by the town engineer. By correspondence dated September 17, 2019, DEC indicated its approval of the SWIP prepared by the applicant. C, with respect to groundwater discharge of sanitary sewer, the proposed action will require the construction of new wastewater treatment facilities. The proposed project is a commercial project with wastewater flows greater than 1,000 gallons per day. The wastewater system requires a state pollution discharge elimination system, SPDIS permit from DEC. Because additional treatment is proposed, a general SPDIS permit will be obtained. The system will be designed in accordance with the DEC standards for intermediate-sized wastewater treatment systems. It will also be designed to the standards of the Columbia County Department of Health, which will review the system designs, plans, and specifications. Site-specific studies, including a geotechnical investigation, septic investigation, and stormwater evaluation, have been completed at the site in accordance to federal and state regulations. These studies have been used to evaluate and assess site-specific soil and groundwater conditions at this location. Information gathered during these studies was used to determine the development of the site and mitigation of potential risk. The laboratory testing, description of subsurface conditions, and records of subsurface exploration contained within a report from applicant's expert all provide information concerning the ability of groundwater to migrate through site soils and local groundwater flow direction. Appropriate site-specific testing has been completed to aid in the design of this modern septic and surface runoff treatment systems consistent with DEC and Department of Health requirements. Testing includes hydraulic conductivity testing and percolation testing, as is consistent with both industry standard and developments of this size and type. Applicants' experts have evaluated conditions to determine the approximate groundwater flow direction. All plans and reports were reviewed by the town engineer. After extensive review and request for plan revisions, correspondence dated September 17, 2019 from DEC approved the issuance of a SPDIS permit and wastewater disposal system for the project. Based on the foregoing, the planning board concludes that the proposed action will not result in a significant adverse environmental impact to groundwater and surface water. D, with respect to potential negative impacts on wetlands, a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation regulated wetland is upgrading to the project site. On August 13, 2018, a wetland assessment was completed at the site by Ecological Solutions LLC, which included an identification of vegetative species to determine whether there was a dominance of hydrophytic plants in areas containing transitional but primary wetland-oriented species, determination of oil features for hydric, poorly and very poorly drained natural soils, observations of site features displaying evidence of wetland hydrology based on the presence of inundated areas, apparent high seasonal water tables, and evidence of saturation within 12 inches of the surface during sufficient periods during the growing season to provide for anaerobic hydric soils. The report concludes there are no federal or state wetlands located on the site that will be impacted by the proposed development. Said report was reviewed by the town engineer. Correspondence from DEC was reviewed on June 26, 2019, indicated a site visit was conducted by the department to review how close the DEC freshwater wetland is to the proposed project area. It was concluded by DEC that the project area would not be located within the wetland or 100-foot adjacent area. E, with respect to potential negative impacts on water flow to nearby existing wells, the proposed action includes the installation of a new water supply system. The proposed project is a commercial project with water demands up to 2,350 250 gallons per day. The water supply system requires a Columbia County Department of Health permit and New York State Department of Health application for approval of plans for public water supply improvements. The applicant has provided well data from neighboring wells from Bell's Pond Mobile Home Park. Wells are located approximately 300 to 650 feet from the proposed site. There are 3 wells that are identified as being on this site, each with a flow rate of 7 to 20 gallons per minute and depth ranging from 120 feet to 200 feet. Well pump tests for 72 hours and monitoring for the Bell's Pond Mobile Home Park were completed by Claverick Pump between December 15th and December 22nd, 2007, and on September 27th through 27th, 2010. Recovery rates of the wells range from 10 minutes to 2 hours and 25 minutes based on provided information from Bell's Park Mobile Home Park. The proposed site will have sufficient water supply to meet the demand of the proposed project, 2,350 gallons per day. The Bell's Pond Mobile Home Park report was reviewed by the town engineer. F, with respect to the leaking of underground fuel tanks, the proposed action will result in the installation of underground storage tanks for fuel storage over an aquifer adjacent to a freshwater wetland. The proposed underground storage tanks will be installed in accordance with requirements specified in DEC Regulation 6, New York CRR Part 613 Petroleum Bulk Storage Program Regulations. To protect both groundwater and surface water resources, the tanks and piping will be fiberglass reinforced plastic of double wall construction. The fueling dispensers will be equipped with sumps and automatic tank gauge monitoring, including interstitial monitoring. All tanks and piping will meet DEC's standard regulations and current regulations and standards. In response to requests made by DEC, safety measures including an oil water separator and gate valve have been added to the stormwater pipe network. All plans were reviewed by the town engineer. The planning board finds that the aquifer will be better protected by the latest engineering techniques and state regulations used in the new gasoline filling stations than by the continued use of the 30-year-old existing gasoline filling station on the southern side of the intersection. G, with respect to potential negative impact threatened and on endangered species, the applicant submitted a threatened and endangered species habitat suitability assessment for the project site prepared by Ecological Solutions, LLC, dated April 7th, 2019, and revised May 30th, 2019, that examines potential impacts of the project on threatened and endangered species. Bald eagles utilize open areas to forage for fish. There is no habitat on the property that meets these criteria, and no nesting or breeding activity was observed on the site or within 660 feet of the site. The project site is currently a mowed meadow with no trees, therefore no disturbance activities will occur to habitat for northern long-eared and Indian bats or bald eagles. On August 7, 2019, the applicant received correspondence from DEC environmental analysts indicating that, quote, based on the 50 feet average tree height in the wetland shrub area east of Route 23 and the distance of over 660 feet from a bald eagle nest, these features should provide sufficient visual screening for the nearby bald eagle to avoid any threatened or endangered species impact. Therefore, there will be no impacts to northern long-eared and Indian bats or bald eagle. The applicant will further mitigate any potential impact by performing construction or site preparation work at such times during the year to ensure there are no impacts to northern long-eared and Indian bats or bald eagles. To the extent required by DEC to mitigate any potential impacts to eagle habitat, the department recommends that site preparation activities occur before December 1st, but a restricted work window for site preparation activities will not be assigned. The applicant permittee will be required to notify the department of their intended commencement work at least 5 calendar days in advance of starting work, which will provide wildlife staff the opportunity to monitor the site and activities at the nest should the bald eagle return to the Bell's Pond area and begin nest construction in a new location closer to the project site, the department must be notified. H, with respect to potential increased traffic and traffic patterns on entering or exiting the site, the proposed project may alter the present pattern of movement of people and goods resulting from the construction of 4,800 square feet cafe and market with gas and diesel fueling islands and associated site appurtenances. The application submitted a traffic impact analysis prepared by Atlantic Traffic and Design, April 16, 2019. Traffic counts were collected to establish the existing traffic volumes for the study area intersections, which include U.S. Route 9 intersection with New York State Route 9H and New York State Route 82, and existing Extra Mart mobile site driveways. The result of the existing traffic count and existing volumes were then projected for 2 years to the future traffic volumes that would patronize the proposed project. Estimates of traffic from other specific potential developments were also computed and added to the proposed volumes to obtain the no-build traffic volumes, i.e. without the proposed project. Estimates of traffic generated by the proposed project were then based on the information published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. The traffic impact analysis concludes that the additional traffic generated by the proposed development will not significantly change the levels of service at the area intersections when compared to the no-build conditions. All reports were reviewed by the town engineer. The planning board does not believe the site will serve as a destination for traveling from outside the local area. In response to DOT concerns with southern access from the site to Route 9H, the applicant restricted the southerly 9H access to a right-in-out driveway. The town's engineer has found the traffic patterns entering or exiting the site complies with stopping site distance standards. I and J, with respect to potential negative impact on community character and future status of the decommissioned service station, the planning board finds that the project is consistent with community plans. The project site is zoned C1 commercial district, which permits the proposed project via special permit. Adjacent land uses represent a wide range of uses, including a large number of commercial uses: Bells Pond Mobile Home Park, Hannaford gas station, vehicle repair garage with unregistered vehicles on site, former book bindery currently being used for outside storage, golf cart dealer, horse farm, and police station. The current Livingston town zoning law, which allows a gas station in this location by special use, is based on the Livingston master plan. Directly south of the project and less than 300 yards distant is the Hannaford Market, where the building is larger in size and the parking lot is larger in size than at the project now before us. The list of the following conditions placed on the project by the Livingston Planning Board will ensure that the site of the current gas station will not be allowed to deteriorate into an eyesore. Number one, within 6 months of the opening of the proposed enterprise, the existing gas station at the south side of the subject intersection, also operated by the applicant, will be decommissioned as a gas station in accordance with DEC standards, and a site plan addressing the decommissioned site until such time as a new use is proposed will be presented to the planning board for its review. At all times, the former gas station will be kept mowed, plowed during the winter to allow for emergency access, free of graffiti, free of broken or boarded up entrances and windows, and free of refuse. Failure to comply following service of notice to remedy within a reasonable time will result in a fine of up to $2,500 plus any expense incurred by the municipality due to municipal remedy of the neglect. Number three, a site restriction will prevent the former gas station from being used for the sale of fuel. Number four, to the extent required by the DEC to mitigate any potential impacts to eagle habitat, the department recommends that site preparation activities occur before December 1st, but a restricted work window for site preparation activities will not be assigned. The applicant permittee will be required to notify the department of their intended commencement work at least 5 calendar days in advance of starting work, which will provide wildlife staff the opportunity to monitor the site and activities at the nest. Should the bald eagle return to the Bells Pond area and begin nest construction in a new location closer to the project site, the department must be notified. Number 5, the project site will not serve as a truck stop. No trucks will be allowed to remain overnight in accordance with 6 SEQR New York Section 217.3. Trucks will not be permitted to idle over 5 minutes. Signage shall be posted stating the same. Number 6, safety measures including an oil separator and gate valve have been added to the stormwater pipe network to mitigate any potential impact to the aquifer. Number I, letter I, with respect to compliance with the town zoning law, from the outset, application was made for a special use permit, site plan review, and lot consolidation, lot line adjustment for the proposed convenience store and gas station at the Bells Pond intersection. The project is located in a C1 zone in which gasoline filling stations require a special use permit. Retail business or service not otherwise specified, such as a convenience store, is a permitted use. In accordance with section 6.6.12 of the zoning law, the planning board, after public notice and hearing, may approve the issuance of a special use, provided it shall find that all of the following conditions and standards have been met. Number 1, the location and size of the use, the nature and intensity of operations involved in or conducted in connection with, the size of the site in relation to it, the location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it, are such that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is located. Number 2, the location, nature, and heights of buildings, walls, and fences, and the nature and extent of the landscaping on the site are such that the use will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings. Number 3, operations in connection with any special use will not be offensive, potentially dangerous, destructive of property values and basic environmental characteristics, or detrimental to the total interest of the town, and will not be more objectionable to nearby properties by reason of noise, fumes, vibrations, electromagnetic radiation, flashing of lights, and similar nuisance conditions than would be the operations of any permitted use not requiring a special permit. The use conforms in all respects to the regulations of this law and particularly to the specific supplementary regulations that apply to such use. Number 5, all structures, equipment, and materials shall be reasonably accessible for fire and police protection. Number 6, the levels of services required to carry out the proposed activity or use is or will be available to meet the needs of the proposed activity or use. Number 7, parking areas will be of adequate size for the particular uses, properly located and suitably screened from adjoining residential uses, and those entrance and exit drives shall be laid out so as to achieve maximum safety. Number 8, the sewage disposal system must be adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Number 9, the planning board shall require additional conditions and safeguards to the special permit as are necessary to assure continual conformance to all applicable standards and requirements. The planning board considered each of the enumerated conditions and standards and found that each was met. The new project consists of a gas station convenience store that will replace the gas station convenience store and diner currently operating on the opposite corner of the same intersection. While the new structure and parking lot are both larger than that of the existing structure, the new structure and parking lot are smaller than that found at the Hannaford Market, less than 300 yards to the south. The new parking lot and traffic patterns represent improved safety for pedestrian and vehicular use over that now found at the current location. According to section 6.7 of the zoning law in its site plan review, The planning board shall be guided in its review by the following. Number one, the proposed use, building, and layout shall meet the provisions of the zoning law and other regulations and ordinances of the town of Livingston and shall meet the intent of the master plan. Number two, the proposed use and design layout will be of such location and in such size and character that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding area. Number three, the proposed use and layout will be of such a nature that it will not make vehicular or pedestrian traffic hazardous. Factors for the planning board to consider in this determination are the turning movements in relation to traffic flow, proximity to and relationship of intersections, adequacy of site distance, location and access of off-street parking, and provisions for pedestrian traffic. Number four, the proposed location and height of buildings or structures, walls and fences, parking, loading, and landscaping shall be such that it will not interfere or discourage the appropriate development in the use of land adjacent to the proposed site or unreasonably affect its value. Number five, signage shall be designed and located so as not to present a hazard, glare, or unattractive appearance to either adjacent property or motorists. The planning board finds that the applicant has provided all required information and that the project meets the standards for site plan approval. The transformer, parking spaces, and light poles planned for the project do not violate the setback requirements of the zoning law, which prohibits buildings from projecting into minimum setback areas, see section 1.3. In accordance with the designation of the project as an unlisted action, accordingly, the planning board answers the following questions found at the SEQR short form part 2 as follows. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, and walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and fail to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? No. Public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. For these reasons, now be it resolved, the planning board finds that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. There's your resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Motion to accept the negative declaration.
I so move.
Chip,
Second.
Second.
John. Okay, voting as follows. Phil Schmidt recuses. Bernie Stickles.
Aye.
Chip Keel.
Aye.
James McFarland absent. Stephen Deagle. Aye. Martin Aowit.
Aye.
John Ross.
Aye.
Robert Bellinger.
Aye. Ted?
I have a second resolution.
Resolution.
Whereas the Town of Livingston Planning Board has received an application for site plan and special use permit approval and lot consolidation lot line adjustment from Global Montello Group Corporation for the development of a gas station and convenience store on a 3.21 acre parcel, tax map parcel numbers 140.0-1-14, 140.0-1-15, and 140.0-1-16 located on New York State Route 9 and US Route 9H in the commercial C1 zoning district in the town of Livingston, Columbia County, New York, and whereas the applicant submitted a proposed site plan prepared by Bowler Engineering entitled Site Development Plans, all town fresh, consisting of sheets 1 to 14 dated November 27, 2018, and revised on January 1st, January 25th, April 17th, May 29th, June 3rd, June 12th, July 26th, and last revised September 20th, 2019. And whereas on May 1st, 2019, the planning board, after duly circulating the project application and full environmental assessment form to all involved agencies, was designated lead agency for the purpose of conducting a coordinated review of an unlisted action pursuant to SEQR. And whereas the planning board has reviewed the site plan application against the general standards for a special use permit found in 6.6.12 of the town of Livingston zoning law. And site plan review of the section 6.7.1 site plan review of the town of Livingston zoning law. And whereas the applicant waived the timeframes for the planning board to make a decision on the proposed site plan, and whereas on February 6, 2019, the planning board opened a duly noticed public hearing on the site plan application, which public hearing was continued on March 6, 2019, April 3rd, 2019, and August 7th, 2019, at which time all interested persons were given the opportunity to speak, and the planning board closed the public hearing on August 7, 2019. Whereas the planning board has deliberated on the application and all matters before it, now be it resolved, the planning board has determined the site plan meets the provisions of the town zoning law and the intent of the master plan. The planning board hereby grants a special use permit, lot line adjustment, and site plan approval in accordance with the plans and specifications heretofore submitted, subject to the provisions of the town code and subject to the following conditions and modifications. A, obtain approval and permit from the Columbia County Department of Health for the proposed water supply system and proposed well. B, obtain approval and permit from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation SPEEDIE's permit for the sanitary and industrial wastewater systems. C, approval and permit of the stormwater pollution prevention plan SWIP by DEC and submission of an acknowledgement letter of coverage from DEC SPEEDIE's general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity GP 015-002. D, obtain approval and permit from the New York State Department of Transportation for the proposed facility entrances. E, submission of site plans for stamping and signing in the number and form specified under the town's law, including all required PE and LS stamps and signatures. F, should water testing by Department of Environmental Conservation and Columbia County Department of Health for the well or wells serving the project not include testing for petroleum, said water shall be tested under the direction of the town engineer at the expense of the applicant on a yearly basis upon 72 hours notice, except in the event of an emergency. Testing shall continue throughout the lifetime of the operation of the project. G, within 6 months of the opening of the proposed enterprise, the existing gas station at the south end of the subject intersection, also operated by the applicant, will be decommissioned as a gas station in accordance with DEC standards. And 2, a site plan addressing the decommissioned site until such time as a new use is proposed will be presented to the planning board for its review. Any contaminated soils identified during decommissioning shall be disposed of by the applicant and the site fully remediated in accordance with DEC regulations. H, at all times the former gas station will be kept mowed, plowed during the winter to allow for emergency access, free of refuse, free of broken or boarded up entrances and windows, and free of graffiti. Failure to comply following service of notice of remedy within a reasonable time will result in a fine of up to $2,500 plus any expense incurred by the municipality due to municipal remedy of the neglect. A deed restriction to be reviewed by the planning board attorney will prevent the former gas station from being used for the sale of fuel. J, to the extent required by DEC to mitigate any potential impacts to eagle habitat, the department recommends that site preparation activities occur before December 1st. That should be site preparation and construction activities. Site preparation and construction activities occur before December 1st, but a restricted work window for site preparation and construction activities will not be assigned. The applicant permittee will be required to notify the department of their intended commencement work at least 5 calendar days in advance of starting work, which will provide wildlife staff the opportunity to monitor the site and activities at the nest should the bald eagles return to the Bells Pond area and begin nest construction in a new location closer to the project site. The department must be notified. K, the project site will not serve as a truck stop. No trucks will be allowed to remain overnight in accordance with 6 SEQR New York 217-3. Trucks will not be permitted to idle over 5 minutes. Signage will be posted stating same. L, all fees owed to the town of Livingston related to the expenses of the consultants hired by the town of Livingston to review, research, and make inspections and report on this application shall be paid in full prior to stamping plans or issuance of certificates of occupancy. Failure to make payments in full within 60 days of the date of approval shall render said approval null and void. M, by accepting plans stamped by the town of Livingston Planning Board Chairman or building permit signed by the town of Livingston building inspector, applicant agrees to comply with all conditions. N, a violation or non-performance of any of these conditions may result in a revocation of this application by the planning board. Violations of any conditions are to be considered violations of the town of Livingston zoning law and shall be subject to prosecution in Livingston Town Court and/or Columbia County Supreme Court. The applicant shall pay the costs of all attorney's fees and litigation expenses of the town in the event of a plea or conviction in favor of the town. O, the special use permit and site plan approval will be effective as of the date of the receipt of the last necessary permit and conclusion of any litigation that may serve to delay the project. When the above conditions have been satisfied, 4 sets of the above reference plans shall be submitted to the planning board chairman for planning board chairman endorsement. 1 set shall be returned to the applicant. 1 set shall be retained by the planning board. 1 set will be provided to the town engineer. 1 set will be filed with the town clerk. Changes to the planning board, changes to the site plan shall require approval of the planning board. The following conditions shall be fulfilled prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. A CO will not be issued unless all proposed improvements have been completed in accordance with the approved site plan and the exception of the requirement to decommission the existing gas station. B, with the exception of the requirement to decommission the existing gas station. B, the following are general conditions which shall be fulfilled throughout the construction and operation of project. The applicant shall continue to comply with all conditions imposed by any of the outside agencies in this permit. Be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chairman or other duly authorized member of the planning board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant. So that's your resolution, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we need a motion granting site plan and special use permit approval.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
A second.
Roll call vote. Chairman Phil Schmidt, recused. John Ross,
Aye.
Robert Bellinger,
Aye.
Chip Keel,
Aye.
James McFarland is absent, Stephen Tebow,
Aye.
Martin Ayowith,
Aye.
and Bernie Stickles.
Aye.
That's all I have.